Oh. I'd like to call this Public Works Committee meeting to order for Tuesday, February 12th at 12:30 p.m. First up is roll call and determination of quorum. Shannon?
Scott? Here.
Here.
Modrick?
Here.
All present here.
Great. Next up is the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Nordstrom, second by Modrick. All in favor?
Aye.
And the agenda is adopted. Now it's time for general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue, not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have no requests for public comment, so now public comment is now closed. We go on to consent items 1 through 15. Public comment is now open on items 1 through 15. Again, I have no requests to speak. Anyone want to speak on those items? Seeing no one, public comment is closed on items 1 through 15. Now it's time for the committee to remove any individual items for separate consideration. Chair recognizes Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to pull item 12. That's it.
Item 12. Seeing no other lights, I'm going to pull item 4 and also item 10. We need a motion to approve the remainder.
So moved.
The agenda is approved with, we're going to pull items 4, 10, and 12. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And we're on our way. Item number 4, authorize staff to advertise for bids for Disc Drive and Haynes Avenue intersection project number 16-2347-CIP number 51121, estimated cost $1,361,000. The main, okay.
Second.
All right, thank you. And I have a couple of questions, so as chair, I guess I'll just give myself permission to do that. This is quite an expensive item, so I'm going to direct a question to Dale Tech. Can you give us a little bit of an overview on this project? And whenever we have something that's over $1 million, I usually like to pull that just to hear more about it.
Sure. Yeah, this project is a replacement of our aged infrastructure. North Haynes Avenue and Disc Drive are arterial roadways, carry a lot of traffic to our shopping districts. We've had a utility issue there a couple of years ago. The pavements are not in good shape. The pedestrian access there is not good at all, so this project is going to take care of all of that. So this is a good example of where we're getting in and doing repairs to our aged infrastructure where they're absolutely necessary. So.
And some of those pipes are still corrosive material. As I understand it, we're going to remove those and replace it with a PVC material. Is that correct?
Correct. There are many different types of materials used for water mains. In the past, cast iron was a very prominently used material. Certainly it will corrode over time. Our standards, city standards, just as many communities across the country used to utilize PVC pipe, and that negates the corrosive properties of large diameter water mains.
Okay, and how long do, what's the life of those pipes that you're going to be putting in?
Our design standard for our buried infrastructure is 100 years, so we hope that what we put in the ground today will last for 100 years.
Okay, I think that's a good use of our money. 100 years is a long time, so thank you very much. The motion has been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries. 100 years. Wow. Okay. Item number 10. Authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign a joint funding agreement between the U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Geological Survey, and City of Rapid City for 2019 water resource investigations for operation and maintenance of selected stream gauging stations, hydrological data collection and analysis, application and regionalization of underground flow model, stormwater monitoring, and Rapid City water quality monitoring. I pulled this because this is going to cost us about $148,000. And Dale, my question to you is, we get matching funding on this, is that correct?
I won't necessarily call it matching fund, but the USGS contributes, or matching isn't quite the correct term, but they also participate in the costs. So I think that's to the tune of about $100,000 as well, or 90-some thousand. So in effect, it's about $238,000 worth of work that's being done. We've had an annual agreement with the USGS for many, many years. They do very many invaluable things for us. The stream gauging operations around Rapid City are used not only for our water supply, but also for our wastewater treatment. That data is critical to the management of those resources. In addition, our aquifers that we have that we draw water from, they do a lot of modeling and a lot of analyzing of data collected out of those aquifers to ensure that our underground water supply is adequate and preserved for the future.
Well, it seems to me we've had some changes in our rainfall, whether it's cyclic or whether it's something that is happening with greater frequency for our area. So I think this is very timely. Do you know when the last one of these was that we had done, possibly? Do you know off the top of your head when the last study was done? Or are they ongoing? Or
It's ongoing. It's done annually.
Okay.
They look at this information continually. I guess one thing I'd like to add to that is the USGS also typically involves students from the School of Mines in a lot of their research and a lot of their data analysis. So this is a great opportunity also for students at the School of Mines to get involved, get engaged with water resources.
I think that all of us would like to see more participation with the School of Mines. What a great resource that is for us, and for them to work on these projects is a good educational opportunity as well. So thank you for adding that. I need a motion. Or do we- Oh, excuse me, Richie is
We
in.
do, okay.
Richie, Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may make that motion to approve this item first and then hold the
Okay.
chair.
Second.
Motion
the
by
floor.
Nordstrom, second by Modrick.
Dale, in our communications back and forth on this, I forgot to ask the question. Isn't the weather service also involved in helping us out with this?
There are a number of partners on the stream gauging portion of this. Work Plan, USGS, the Weather Service, I think the Corps of Engineers. There are other entities that realize benefit from the stream gauging data that's collected. So there's a number of partners. In fact, they call it a cooperative partnership. So there are many sources of funding that go to support the mission, as well as I believe the West Dakota Water Development District also provides funding for other stream gauges, not necessarily right here in Rapid City, but certainly in the region.
Thank you. That's where I learned a lot about, is the stream gauges and the uses of it. And then, again, thank you for the information on the Weather Service. I forgot to ask that in our communications, so I yield.
Okay, the motion is to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, and the motion carries. On to item number 12, request for mayor and finance officer to sign professional services amendment for project 17-2424/CIP number 5063 with American Engineering Testing, Inc. for citywide geotechnical construction materials and QA/QC services for to increase the contract, well, that's what it says, to increase the contract amount by $2,398.05, and the chair recognizes Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask a couple questions of Mr. Dale Tack, please?
Please?
Thank you. So Dale, the reason I'm going to ask you a couple questions on this is just to put light on the fact of how the government works. Number one, most of these types of things are done administratively because department directors have up to $25,000 to sign contracts and that carry on with the city's business so that we aren't holding things up waiting on city council to approve every small amount, correct?
That's correct.
So the reason I say that is to remind the public of that. So kudos to our staff for not slowing down government, because government is generally very slow to start with. But then when things like this do come back, because the amount on this original one is like $1 below that $25,000 mark. So when it comes back, which is good, it comes back to city council as soon as it goes over that $25,000 limit. But then it raises or shines a spotlight, why? Why did this one go over from what was estimated?
That's a great question. This is an annual contract that we do every year for geotechnical testing. So we don't know through the course of a year what is going to need to be done until it happens or it shows up on our planning efforts. So I think most years we don't exceed the $25,000 limit that we as staff have entered into contracts for. But this year was a busy year, or when I say this year, I mean 2018. So that means there's a lot of work being done out there. So there was a lot of testing required, a lot of investigation, a lot of verification that what was installed meets our standards, and then also giving us projects in the future as well. So we're out doing investigation on replacement projects. So for next year, we'll see a benefit from this contract as well.
All right, and thank you, Dale, for that explanation. Like I said, it just always looks a little funny when it comes in like that. So just want to make sure that everybody in the public knows that, as Alderwoman Drew stated earlier on the project coming up at Disk and Hines, city funds are being spent responsibly. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion by Nodrick to approve, second by Modrick. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes. That brings us to the end of the consent calendar. I just wish to make just a comment, a brief comment here, that this committee could blast through those things pretty quickly. We wouldn't have to take these out for consideration. But I appreciate your time of the committee on looking at these things. This is where the deliberations are supposed to happen to save time at the council meetings. And so that's why we do those kinds of things, pulling these items at these meetings, because we have a little bit more time and fewer people to engage. And I appreciate your time and consideration when it comes to consent. We're on to non-consent items now, 16 through 17. Public comment is now open. I have no requests. So public comment is now closed. We'll go on to special items from the public. Number item 16, an informational presentation on Black Hills Energy West Rapid City Substation and Transmission Line Project. And we have representatives from Black Hills Energy here. Would you please identify yourselves and then give us your presentation?
Good morning. My name is Much Usera. I'm the Senior Program Manager of Community Affairs at Black Hills Energy. I'm actually going to have Mark Ayer, who's our Director of Operations, give the presentation. But just on behalf of Black Hills Energy, just want to thank you all for allowing us to do this. We're really making a big effort this year in 2019 to communicate all of our infrastructure projects that are key and major to our customers, and this will be one of them. So between Mark and, of course, Ron Williams, our project manager, they'll be able to answer all your questions. Thanks again.
All right, they got the presentation up. Good afternoon. Like Much mentioned, my name is Mark Ayer. I'm the Director of Operations, and we wanted to take the opportunity to give you an update on a new substation that we're planning on building. We're calling it the West Rapid City Substation, and it will be located on our property at our service center at 409 Deadwood Avenue. So just a little bit of background here to kind of see where this fits in. This slide just shows a brief overview on how we deliver electricity to the region. So we generate power. Most of the power generated for this area is at our Gillette Energy Complex. It's then transported over transmission lines over long distances, and then when it comes to the region that we're serving, we have transmission substations which then knock the voltage down. That then can go to sub-transmission lines that run to individual neighborhoods and distribution substations. So you can see we recently gave an update on the Pleasant Valley substations. That would be downstream of a substation like we're proposing now. So that West Rapid City substation would take the transmission line in and then again knock the voltage down to a sub-transmission voltage. So currently in the Rapid City area, we have two transmission substations, one on the north side of town and then one in South Rapid City. So this would be a third substation for this area. So the purpose is really, it's required to add capacity to the Rapid City area to support current customers. Out of this substation, we feed directly into some large industrial and commercial customers. So they'll benefit from this as well as all customers in the area. It'll also allow us, as we have new customers and businesses coming into Rapid City, to have that capacity to serve them, and then enhance system reliability for those existing customers. And then that third bullet, just as a point, you'll see on the timeline, you know, there's long lead time items, a lot of engineering and planning that goes involved, and so we have to anticipate the needs of our customers and look at what's going on in our system well in advance to make sure that we have these facilities in place when our customers need them. So now looking at where this will actually sit. So if you look at the red line that goes north and south, that's an existing transmission line. And so what we are doing is we are going to tap off that existing transmission line just on the west side of Founders Park, just north of Omaha. And that blue outline kind of shows where we will run the transmission line. Those lines in there just show that we already have existing electric facilities there, and so we're not doing any work or adding any lines where we didn't have them before, so we'll actually clean some of that area up and have the new transmission line go through that existing easement where we already have facilities. It will go up through past Deadwood Avenue, get onto our property, and then head north, and you can kind of see where that, in further slides it'll show it a little bit more detail, but back behind our service center where the old coal pile used to be is where that substation will physically sit. So this is just a little, just showing kind of a little blow up. You see Deadwood Avenue there, and then the cement plant would be back behind there. So that's kind of the region where we're working. And then specifically right here shows where that substation will sit. It'll be on a 3-acre parcel directly behind the service center. So with the grade from Deadwood Avenue, you might be able to see one of the transmission structures going in there, but you wouldn't be able to see the substation, I don't believe, from Deadwood Avenue. All back behind secured gates that we already have in place, so really all on our facility. So the scope of the project, so like I mentioned, the substation will be located on 3 acres on our service center property. We'll have to build approximately 1.5 miles of transmission line in those existing easements that we have to get to the substation. And then out of that substation, we'll tie into our sub-transmission lines that go and feed other distribution substations. And those will be primarily on Black Hills property as well, where we make those tie-ins. So looking at the transmission line, the picture on the left is the existing easement with the existing overhead infrastructure as it sits there. So this is a picture taken on Deadwood Avenue looking east as it crosses the U-Haul property, and then it runs into our existing transmission line. So you can kind of see what it looks like today. The picture on the right will show what it looks like in the future. So if you're familiar with the structures that are on Mountain View Road right outside of Bacon Park, it will be those exact same structures. So we'll have the transmission line on top, and then the underbuild, if that circuit that's existing will be built underneath it on single pole structures. So again, just looking back at that region, so one thing I would note is in that existing transmission line, where it comes down into Founders Park right there. Today there's 3 wooden structures where each phase lands. With this project, it will go to that single pole structure, so we'll actually be getting rid of some of those structures, and the anchoring guy wires will be removed as well with the new structures. So looking at the schedule, in 2018 we did a majority of the design and engineering. We also had some discussions and communications with the council members from Ward 5, gave them a heads up on that this would be coming. They also had communications with Public Works and Parks and Rec as well. So right now, through July, we're in the permitting and procurement phase. And so really getting a lot of the info out to the public on this. This did require a application and approval from the South Dakota Public Utilities Commission. So we filed that permit with them last week. As part of that permitting process, we will have a noticed public input meeting, and that's scheduled for March 18th. And so we'll engage with the public there as well on any input they may have. There are a few city permits that we'll get, and then we'll also have some media releases as we go. With pending approval from the Public Utility Commission, we'll start construction in July of 2019 with the substation, and then transmission line construction in August. A majority of that construction will be done early in 2020, but there is quite a bit of testing and before we can put that substation operational, so we'll have the in-service date of May 2020. And again, I just close with this, that safety is one of our core values and top priorities at Black Hills Energy, and so we're focused on not only keeping our employees and contractors that will be working on this job safe, but also customers, general public, and so we'll be working with Parks and Recreation and others to make sure that we have traffic control, pedestrian safety in place, specifically on the east side of that project where we tie in. It's close to a bike path. So just making sure that we have all that cordoned off and safe. And the key contacts for this project, if you have further questions, myself, Much, and Ron Williams is here as well. So with that, I guess any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
It looks like we have some. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge this presentation. And retain the floor if I can?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for coming forward and doing a presentation. It lets all of our citizens know what's going on. Just a couple questions that I had as you were going through your presentation. Since this is a new substation, is there going to be an interruption of service?
No.
Okay.
So the way we'll tie it in is, yeah, it will not have any interruption to any existing customers.
All right.
Yep.
So, because you said the substation itself is going to be built on your property and may not be visible by Deadwood Avenue. So, but then you mentioned Founders Park, and there's a line coming down there?
Yeah. So the Founders Park, our existing transmission line goes through there, and we have a sub-transmission line that kind of crosses there. So we're going to tap off and be in existing areas where we already have easements and already have overhead power lines is where we're going to construct it. So that's
So
correct.
does that point at Founders, I'm trying to understand so does that stay in existence then until you do a cutover?
Correct. So what will happen during construction, we'll build the new one, and then we'll tie it over when it goes, before we energize it. So we'll have some switching involved, but we can configure the system where we will not interrupt service to any customers.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the clarification
Yep.
I needed in my mind, just
Yep.
to follow those lines. So, thank you. Madam Chair, I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. So this substation, is it to improve services, or you're trying to?
So it's really twofold. The first is to increase capacity in the system. So as existing customers grow, and then also as we have new customers and new load growth on our system, being able to forecast and serve that. But then for existing customers with that new substation, it gives us additional capacity to reduce voltage fluctuations on the system, as well as with those ties, we can reroute power in different ways. So if there was an issue on a part of the system, we have another input source, so to speak, where we can reroute power and serve it from this substation. So that sub-transmission piece that serves multiple substations is really key, because if we have an issue on that piece, we could have 2 or 3 of those local distribution substations out, like a Pleasant Valley or a Cemetery Sub, where you have 2,000 or 3,000 customers off of each of those. So this really helps the availability, the opportunity to switch the system around and not lose those customers.
That's great news. Just because this kind of thing impacts the city a lot, what do you think the cost to Black Hills Energy is going to be on these improvements?
Okay, yeah, and this was filed with the Public Utilities Commission as well. The substation's about a $6.5 million investment, and then the transmission line's about $1.5 million investment.
That is good news, because we like people to spend money in Rapid City. And also to increase your customer service is always wonderful. I was looking at your new lines, and I saw the, as they came out in the triangles, existing lines are just like this, the new ones are the triangle shape. Will those be impacted by bird, squirrels, or drones?
No, and Ron might be able to speak to this a little bit more, but we try to, our new construction standards are avian safe. Obviously, we want to protect raptors as well as reduce outages, and so those triangles that come out are the insulators, and so those are insulating the structure from the energized line there. We don't foresee any issues really with the separation. We just want to make sure that there's room for avian and other things that can be on there without touching two different energized potentials. So,
okay. Well, I know that our active wildlife sometimes causes disruptions in service as well, so I just wanted to know about that. And I see no other questions. Anyone? Okay. Thank you for your presentation. And the motion is to acknowledge. All in favor?
Aye.
Those
Thank you.
opposed? Thank you for your time. Yeah. Drones could be wildlife. I just really like the way that you guys are keeping us apprised of what's going on. This is so important, because we will all hear from constituents on these matters, at least especially in Ward 5, but I think citywide.
Yeah, one thing I would mention, yeah, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out, but we'll also have that public input meeting in March, so that'd be a great opportunity we'll share this information as well. So.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. That brings us on to item 17, a request from Highland Properties LLC for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk on East St. Patrick Street portion of the property per City Ordinance 12.08.060C. And we have Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we have a couple of representatives here from Highland. I thought we had them in the audience, and I want to send an appreciation to our staff and to Dale Tech as well, who outlined the previous passing of waiving or variancing waive the one on the Setaway side. And that was a great recommendation, and it really helps us on this side of it. So that's good for you. Now we address the St. Patrick side, which is the busy traffic side and the growing side, and we know that there's a huge future coming down that lane. So if I could first, I'd like to ask Dale Tech a question on that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Dale. So as usual, when we're talking about the sidewalks, we do run into the sidewalk to nowhere, and I saw where the church has a sidewalk that was installed. There's mention that there needs to be an upgraded portion of the sidewalk as well, and then where it's going to end, what this is being requested here, there's nothing past that developing at this point, right? Is it just a no-end sidewalk as well that we're requesting to put in on this location?
Well, much like this location, eventually those properties will request a building permit, and per our code will be required to install sidewalks, or the city council has the option to order those in. From the west of this property that we're talking about, there's sidewalks all the way west, so there's a connection. As things are developing out in that area, it makes sense to build on that connection and keep expanding our pedestrian access system.
So on both sides, when we're going down St. Pat, does it end at the church property when it is going towards the west, or does it continue all the way down to Creek? How far does it go?
It continues all the way down to Campbell Street.
Very good. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Thanks so much. That's all for me now.
Okay. Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may make the motion to uphold staff's recommendation to install the sidewalk.
Second.
Motion by Richie Nordstrom to uphold the staff recommendation, second by Amanda Scott. And is that the end of discussion? Okay. All right. So all.
May I ask our representative?
Of course.
Thank you, I should have queued in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Missed that.
Thank you. That's fine.
Would you mind coming up in case I missed something here on your, I believe this is probably your first time of processing through the requests and the ordinances, and first of all, I appreciate that you're expanding your company in Rapid City and that you continue to grow.
Thank you.
And you're everywhere, and we certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
For your services. I just want to ask you what you may want to define as why we're doing this, because the variance is important, but so is the ordinance, and we want to make sure that there's a good understanding of that.
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, my name's Chad Inger. I'm the one of the business partners of Highland Properties. We just recently purchased this property on East St. Patrick Street with plans to move one of our other businesses in there. And this is where we are learning a lot about the city ordinances, and now I'm here today. I appreciate what you've done for us for Sedivy Lane. What I'm actually asking for East St. Patrick is not to waive it, but to phase it. What we have is a 3-acre plot of land. It's rectangular, and a third of it is where we're going to be putting our building. It's fenced in. It has a parking lot. And then the other 2/3 of it is just vacant right now. It's just flat, vacant land. And so with the renovation of the building side on the third, we want to put sidewalk there as phase 1. And then with future plans to develop the other 2/3 of the land and then connect the sidewalk from there on to east, I think, yeah, east. And that would maybe be triggered with another
Application. An application for that expansion.
yeah, and another permit that we would pull for the development of the other 2/3.
And if I could ask Dale Tech a question?
Sure.
Dale, I know we have this come before us. In his request, he's asking for that phase 1 with potential growth of the other side, which isn't going to be used. How likely is it that we could or should consider that while he's using a portion of the property?
Staff's opinion is now's the time to install the sidewalk on the entire parcel. It won't get any cheaper to do it in the future. It's a good investment to do today for the balance of the entire property. You're done with it. So certainly the City Council, you can, that's why this item is in front of you today, is for you to either approve the variance, make modifications to the variance, but staff believes that our ordinance is the way to get our multimodal transportation systems installed, and we stand behind our recommendation on this item.
Thank you for that. And thank you as well, Chad, for coming up and speaking. I see somebody else in the queue, so I'm going to release my thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes John Roberts.
Thank you very much. And Chad, if you don't mind going back up to the podium. Sorry about that. I just had a question for you. I looked at that property a few years ago with some clients, and one of the things that they were thinking about was subdividing off that east section. Do you have any possibility or or are you planning on building on that side of the property? And the reason I ask, I'll tell you real quick, is if we put a sidewalk in there and you do subdivide that property, there's going to have to be an access point in there, and part of that sidewalk would have to come out. Or the builders would come across that sidewalk and more than likely break it out. So I'm just curious.
As part of the agreement with the bank and getting the loan on this property, they wanted us to possibly subdivide it for basically for their sake. Even if we had plans to develop it in the future, the subdivide is a big part of what they want us to do right now.
And I think that makes I think that we should look at that, because if this is going to be a different parcel of property, a lot of things come into play there. You know, like I said, another access, you know. And I hate to see people put infrastructure dollars in and then have it either taken out or broken out in the future. So I would suggest that we look at this phasing on this project. I would recommend, personally would recommend that, and I'd vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion to uphold the staff recommendation. I would just like you to know, Chad, that regardless of the vote today, you'll have to come back on Monday for the Tuesday for the council meeting, so that, you know, that will be the final decision. We have Lisa Modrick is back in the queue.
Thank you. I'll try a friendly motion to accept this on a Phase 1 basis, since the subdivision is in the plans.
Second.
A motion to accept this as Phase 1, and by Modrick, second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm in the queue.
Oh, excuse me, Amanda Scott. Sorry. Amanda Scott.
Rewind.
That's okay. Just wanted to weigh in here. I won't be supporting this motion at this committee meeting for this friendly amendment, only because the two lots are not separated yet. So if there was any way that you could wait on the project and get those split off so that they're two separate lots, then I would be in favor of that. But with it just being a possibility out there, that's not to say that it's necessarily going to go through. And I know that, just since you're learning about the city, we've had an initiative in the city for years to get sidewalks built in, and the trigger that makes the sidewalk become for discussion is that permit. And I did look at this one, and you did get the waiver on the other street, so this one has a wear pattern on it, and it makes sense to put the sidewalk in. So I would support the motion, the substitute motion or the friendly amendment motion that's just been proposed, if they were literally two separate lots now, but I won't support it at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Chad, that'll be my recommendation as well, because at this point, I can't support a hypothetical, because we don't know for sure that it will be subdivided. If it was actually firmly set that it would be subdivided, then I'd take a different look at this, but at this point, I can't support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also add that I'm going to be voting with Amanda and Richie on this, because I actually do feel that builders may be able to do something without wrecking the sidewalk that's already there. So I'm putting some faith in some people that can actually do something without wrecking what's already in place. So the motion on the floor is to Phase 1. And so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Okay, aye. So I broke the tie, actually, and so it's 3-2. Back to the original motion. So, okay.
Okay.
The original motion is to uphold the staff recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
One opposition, and the first motion passes. So we'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Lisa Modrick has another question.
I hope I'm in order, but I just want to ask this question. It won't be for Chad, but it is for our committee. So if he does decide to postpone this in order to put that in place, he could should I direct it to Dale?
Yeah.
He could reapply, if he decided to hold this, to continue it, to process what he wants to do with his finances and so on, then this would go on hold and then come back to us again?
I think what you're asking is if they decide to subdivide the property and then come back, most certainly they have another opportunity to request a variance.
Okay, so he could do that, he could pull this item off, proceed forward, and then come back with you with an additional application, or on this original application?
It would be a completely separate
That's what I thought, so you
action.
know.
It wouldn't be
Can I ask a
continuance?
question, too?
Yeah, you
wanted-
know
I
what?
wanted
This
to be
is what
aware.
this meeting is for, and I know we're kind of out of order, but go ahead.
Thank you,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
thank you for that.
So Dale, if he subdivided this property and he knows that he's going to have to put the sidewalk in on Lot A, but it's been subdivided, now there's a Lot B, he wouldn't have to come and ask for a variance because he's not pulling a permit on Lot B. So he wouldn't even be asked to put in the sidewalk on Lot B. So I think we're kind of getting the cart in front of the horse. If he brings it back, I mean, that takes care of that problem until he does something on Lot B. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll sort it out on Tuesday, but everyone's bringing up a great point. Oh, now we got Richie back in. I'm going to allow it, okay, since I gave him...
Don't have to.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to.
Just another thought is that to add into the mix is that, since we're somewhat convoluted, is that Chad could withdraw his current, current proposal with that property right now, and then between now and Tuesday to make that decision. So you don't have to make a decision at this minute. And so you can also continue it or make a request at next Tuesday's meeting, the full city council, to make a request for a continuance. So that's another option you have.
Okay, so this meeting is totally out of hand. And well, I just want to reiterate that right now it stands at upholding the staff recommendation. We'll revisit this on Tuesday. Motion to adjourn by Amanda Scott. I need a second?
Second.
Second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.